Welcome to Viva La Visionary, the podcast that celebrates the innovative ideas and mindsets of entrepreneurs and visionaries. Join your host, Coach Bob Schittefeld, as he dives into inspiring stories and practical insights from trailblazers who are changing the game. Whether you're an aspiring entrepreneur or a seasoned leader, this show is your source for motivation and creativity. Let's embark on this exciting journey together.
Hey there, Coach Bob here, founder of the Visionary Forum. Very excited for another amazing conversation in Viva La Visionary, celebrating and elevating with one of my favorite people in the world, Alex Freytag. Alex, how are you today?
I'm doing great, Bob. Thank you. One of my favorite people in the world. I love it. Right back at you.
I have that rehearsed because I say it all day long. No, I'm just kidding.
Top 50.
Yeah, exactly. So the reason I created this podcast is I love to have great conversations, and someone called it being a curator, inspiring great conversations. As we've laughed, I don't usually remember what we talked about, and so it's amazing. And I don't think you were at one of the summits where Dr. Doug Brackman, the way I heard him explain, one of his definitions of God was simple, intense presence. Intense and peaceful or something. So I might be, but that to me, so these conversations to me, it's part of God. And again, I'm not debating or want debate around who or what God is, but to me, that is like what touches my soul is having these great conversations. And again, I've had so much fun with you in the past. So excited to have you here.
Yeah, thank you.
Cool. And so, so real quick, give me your 2-minute story because it's so amazing for, running businesses and having partners and learning and then EOS and then teaching it and creating the EOS Conference and writing books. And so you've been such an influence and an inspiration on myself and so many. So in a couple minutes, give us your history. Yeah. Well, 2 hours later, right?
I know, exactly. And so then I turned 10. So let's see. I'll go back to entrepreneurial household and didn't really know what that meant, but I was youngest of 3 boys, and dad was kind of into marketing. And so he'd bring home, he was in the soft drink industry, we'd do these blind taste tests of like RC Cola and Coke and Pepsi and then he developed he had a little consulting business. He built advisory boards and talked to small business owners often. And then he helped people set up advisory boards. This is back in like the 70s and 80s.
Oh, wow.
And he's involved in these sort of entrepreneurial companies. And so it's just sort of this influence for me to see. And then my older brothers, both entrepreneurial. And I was a psych major. And then in 96, with our dad's sort of prompting, it was his idea to start this company that was called ProfitWorks. And what he saw on these various boards was like all these business owners were concerned because their employees think they're making all these millions and millions of dollars, and they're sometimes breaking even or like barely scraping by. And they're like, yeah, we're a $10 million company, but I don't have $10 million. Yeah. So we
and everyone else thinks that we're rich, right?
Yeah. And the idea was sort of to maybe expect or assume that the employees could begin to understand just simplified financials and understand how small precious profit was. And then fast forward, that turned into a company called Ownership Thinking, where I met this awesome visionary named Brad Hams, who was just such a great, like flaming visionary, as you call it. And he helped sort of shape me and shape sort of my thinking about ProfitWorks and took it a lot further. We got incentive plan design and because the idea is if the employees are thinking like owners, they're going to drive more profit, and it's self-funded. And so, and then he was helpful. He and I started the Ownership Thinking Conference, and that's where I got all the conference experience back it was probably starting in 08, and did 7 of those with him. And then I read Get a Grip, which like changed my world. And I went back and read Traction, but went to boot camp in EOS. And I kind of decoupled the ownership thinking ProfitWorks stuff and just went all in on EOS, because it was like, he who chases 2 rabbits catches neither kind of philosophy, which I read in Traction, I think, or in one of the books. And that's where I said, I got to just do one. And then COVID came around, and I was like, I got all this stuff in my brain around ProfitWorks. I got to get it on paper. So that's when I wrote ProfitWorks. And then Stretch and Not Snap came out this year, which is like a fable version. It's the Get a Grip characters doing ProfitWorks. So that's like the 3-minute version. So
That's awesome. And thank you very much. And you were one of the first implementers, correct, with EOS?
Amber and I asked her, she said, I think you're 55. So
Okay.
I like that.
But in those first few
Nice.
years, right? Yeah, I mean, and that's when it was, to me as a visionary, the fun time. And I came in, I was number 111, but I was also part of it with being friends with Gino and not helping him, but helping him as a friend, listening as he was creating EOS and turning his dad's company around. He's like, if I can turn my dad around, I can turn anyone around. And he's a visionary, and we're all alike. So yeah, so those first few years were amazing. Not that EOS is so amazing, but at the beginning of the community, and again, that's a lot of what us visionaries. It's so exciting, and we're inspiring, and we're rocking, and the energy's flowing. And yet, what we realize is we hit a ceiling as a visionary, as a company. So structure is absolutely necessary to not go insane. But then what I find is sometimes we visionaries either get bored by it. And so to me, it's it's the process and the magic. So sorry, go ahead. What were you saying?
Well, no, I would be interested to hear when you were observing Gino with Floyd, right? Floyd was a visionary, Gino was the integrator.
Right.
I would
yeah.
Maybe they hadn't defined those terms quite yet. But when I was at Ownership Thinking, we got exposed from one of our clients to EOS. And this was in probably 2011 or 12, something like there, 11. Yeah. And we started to self-implement, and Brad was the visionary. Right. I was the integrator. But to your point on hitting the ceiling, that's not I was doing it.
Right. You're good at it. Right.
It was okay. I could muscle through it. But once I realized, oh my gosh, I'm a creator. I'm a visionary. It like a lot of freedom. It was really
and a lot more laughter.
Yeah.
That integrating job sucks, and God bless having them around.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, absolutely. And I guess, Gino's journey from integrator to visionary, which doesn't happen often, I don't think.
Right. But he's one of the few that are both. Yeah. So real quick on Gino. I mean, he's one of my best friends and literally one of my heroes for him having a vision. And he's not a big time visionary. I mean, he thinks big, but it's very narrow and focused, not like a lot of ours. And so to watch him and be a part of just witnessing him go through it was amazing. And he had that vision of 10,000 companies running on EOS with the help of an implementer. And he predicts it 14 years out and hits it within 1 year. Or I'm sorry, 1 month. It was November of 20.
Amazing. It is amazing.
So, and he inspired us, and especially a lot of us visionaries. We don't follow a lot of people for that long, and that's a tribute for how he is a visionary as well and engaged us. And so, again, thank you to Gino for all he's done. So I heard your whole thing. I want to talk about financial literacy because I heard you say to have employees think like owners. But it's funny because the trigger I had is, yes, I'm an owner, but I don't run it like a business sometimes. So what you're doing is simplified, because I've gone through a few of your tools and exercises, and they're brilliant and simple. So any employee can figure it out. Any visionary can figure it out. So I think it's interesting that, and I appreciate you giving us credit that we have a clue on how to run a business, but, it helps all of us to simplify. Like even when, someone looked at me years ago and they're like, must be cool that you've made it. And I'm like, so what does that mean? He's, well, because you make all this money and everything, you got a $13 million company. I'm like, so what do you mean? She's like, well, you made 13 million. I'm like, okay, there's a difference between getting a check and making, and it took me a while to learn, and I'm still learning every day. So I appreciate your teaching a lot of us on financial literacy.
Yeah, no, it's great. And there are a lot of books out on it, which is great because it's not like you're going to get innovation on a financial statement. It's kind of been that way.
Good that we don't, right?
Yeah, it's not going to change. Yeah, you might have more expenses than way back then, but
what if we call it? Right?
Yeah, exactly. But I try to your point, simplify it because I'm not an accountant or a finance person, but I know enough to be dangerous. Which and it's it's levers. But my sort of aha or epiphany was that the employees can, if it's taught simply, really engage with it. And so we do a lot of comparisons, like household finance, like your paycheck is kind of like your sales, and then you got your cable bill and your mortgage and your food and lights and heat and car maintenance, and you have a tiny little bit of money left over. If you're not happy with it, you can do some things at home And that's
Right.
just thinking into our business. And so we get them to sort of like dip a toe in the water and come in and realize,
Right.
oh my God, I'm in the warehouse, and actually I do have a huge impact on efficiencies. And so if I do these things differently, so the other piece, Bob, to this is that prior to EOS, I just assumed that the leadership team was all on the same page with where they were going, and
Right.
healthy mind, and it's just not the case.
Right.
So when I stumbled upon EOS and was sort of pulled into the community, it was like, oh my gosh, this has to go for, you have to get really disciplined around your people decisions.
Right.
And because you don't put an incentive plan on, with the wrong people, it's not going to be fun.
Right.
So
Right.
Anyway, that
No, that's great. And again, I think what you have done is you've made education fun, simple, and interesting, which is, I think, what a lot of us have spun from the whole, geno evolution of EOS. It's not just what EOS is; it's helping visionaries to simplify what they're learning. And the biggest thing I got to go through with Gino is, as we were going through a lot of the same things with Strategic Coach, EO, Landmark Forum, and we were together a lot. I was a client, he was a client, and I miss spending that much time with him. But it was also, him saying, wow, I can take these tools and simplify it for business. And I took a lot of those same tools and simplified it for life. So it's been fun to grow with him. He's been teaching the businesses. I've been teaching how to live a great life. And we're now doing this, which is just so cool. Very cool. So shifting gears a little bit, but so why would you say, Alex, why are you on this planet? So just a small question.
Okay, yeah. So we're going to go there.
Right. Define God, define love. No, I'm just kidding.
I've thought a lot about this because obviously we're learners, and we're constantly like doing a lot of inside work and thinking. And the simple way that I say it is I help people unleash their potential, and it's just that simple. And I say people versus employees or entrepreneurs, or because it's my kids and everybody that I'm in touch with. I see potential, and I want to help them to the degree they want help, unleash that, because I just see so much capacity in people, and I think it's that excites me. It gives me passion, and I've seen it work so many times that it's like reinforcing for me. So that's my why, is unleashing that potential. And so that a lot of different ways I do that, but that's how I feel.
And again, you've been an inspiration to me, because not only have you been spending a lot of time on that and sharing with us and learning together, that you're living in so many different ways. And the energy I get from your smile, it's like, okay, he's not faking it. I mean, he is present. I want to learn. It's interesting, because people are like, they want to be around me. I'm like, well, what am I doing? And a lot of it is just the passion oozing out. And then also the simplicity of how you explain what you do, which is awesome. So that's cool. So then another question would be, so you've had many different entrepreneurial lives and aspects of it. What would be one thing that happened to you, or you learned, or you shifted or changed, that really made an impact, not only on your business, but your life, that might help other visionaries?
Yeah, I was thinking about that, and because we have our story, right? That when the and probably the biggest pivot that comes to mind, because there are several, was so in 2000, maybe 2001, I was invited to a Vistage meeting in Columbus here, where the chair knew what I was doing with ProfitWorks, and he knew the speaker was going to be talking on something similar. Right. And so I went to this talk, and I had, these like clip art slides, and I was all, kind of like, but he was like awesome, mesmerizing and engaging. And so meeting Brad Hams the first time was so impactful for me. And at the end, he gave me his card, and I kind of, just went away. Well, I went through a series of different jobs. ProfitWorks were kind of mothballed for a little bit, and I was at a chocolate company for a couple of years, and it was a glue company, Elmer's Glue, for a couple of years. And I was like, oh my God, I'm so bored. Like, this is not, and I was flipping through my, if you remember, Rolodex.
Right.
And card. It was 2008. So 7 years later, and I was like, I'm going to call this cat. So he picked up, like, immediately. We talked for like 3 hours, and we really realized we have similar passion and similar experiences, and we decided to partner. And so I became an owner with him in ownership
Right.
thinking. He was in Denver, I was in Columbus. So that whole relationship
Huh.
shifted me, and I left this secure job and 401k and all this other stuff to bet on myself. And I
Right.
just loved,
Huh.
wasn't even sure, but I was just so excited about it. And then things just kind of took off from there. So that's
So
probably
to
my
sum it
big,
up, it's to have the courage to bet on ourselves. It's, I
yeah,
mean, what I'm hearing, which is, I think, very true for not just for visionaries and entrepreneurs, but for people. I mean, Nick,
yeah,
my son is a freshman right now, and just having a conversation with last night, he's like, I'm glad I made this choice. And it's not easy, but this is kind of cool to learn and grow and put himself
right.
out there, and it's like, dude, you're fucking amazing, which I think we're all amazing, but I don't think we all realize it internally. So that's awesome.
Yeah,
Appreciate it. Cool.
that's
And
very
then
true.
what's one topic or opportunity or issue you're working on now as a visionary that you're not wrestling with, but working through? Or
Yeah. So let me give a little context and then I'll share
sure.
that.
Thank
So the ProfitWorks model is operating system is sort of the first component. You got to get the people right.
you. Right.
Second is the self-funded incentive plan that's simple in design and has a minimum expectation of profit that has to be reached before the incentive kicks in. And then
Right.
third is called the missing link, but it's teaching the employees to find the money to fund the plan, to help the employees become active participants, thinking like owners, like we said, so that they
Right.
create an earned compensation plan. And then as you update your 1 year plan, you update the incentive plan, you keep teaching, teaching, teaching. So that's the model, the three things.
Right.
And what we found with this very quick kind of movement in AI and automation and so forth is that the opportunity is that, so a lot of people read, they'll read like Stretch, like they'll read this and they'll say, hey, great, love it, design my own plan. And so the DIY is out there, right? I'll read something and just try it. I'll read ProfitWorks and try to design my own plan. And then they come to me maybe 6 months later and say, hey, can you look at this? Can you give me some feedback? Can you show
Right.
holes? And so they're not wanting us to do it. They want help to do it. And so what I see from the opportunity issue standpoint is automation, software as a service, read the book, and then use this online tool to create your incentive plan in like 30 seconds. Put in
Right.
some kind of data. So that's what we've started to roll out. It's called ProfitWorks Autopilot. And so it's like the entry level way to get your plan started. You get 80-90% of the way there, and then you can customize the rollout
Right.
and off and running. So that's what we're excited about, is supporting entrepreneurs in that as sort of a coach on the side as they self-implement ProfitWorks. So that's
But
exciting for
not
us.
just dependent. It's awesome. And not just dependent on your time to help them and help your business, which is
Right.
huge. Yeah. No, I
Yeah,
love it. Are you using much AI for that?
we are. Yeah, exactly. And because the thinking is can be done with a lot more experience and
Right.
very quick research, and so it can pull that in. So it's in an evolutionary state.
Right.
The
Which
minimum
I think it
viable
always is
product.
with AI, right?
I, yeah. So, but that's exciting for us, and I think it'll hit a button that allows that autonomy of doing it myself, but with a sense of confidence that I'm
Right.
staying within the handrails,
Right.
not handcuffs, handrails
Ooh,
of
good catch.
uh,
Right. So
in the
it's
lane.
interesting. That's what I find in, I haven't shared with you in a while, but the enlightened visionary journey is I've been coaching and being a visionary for 30 years. I mean, there's
Yeah,
hundreds of people I've worked with. I realize there is a certain journey that a lot of us go through, and it starts with a business operating system. Because if I'm an entrepreneur and my business is out of whack, I almost can't think, and that's not good for anyone. Then to have a
yeah,
life operating system of whatever that means, and there's many different ways to join
right.
relevant peer groups where we can share and be vulnerable and learn from each other and our experiences to do the
Yeah,
work, the mountain, the
yeah,
retreat, the workshops, the summits and whatnot, to be coached and or mentored and allow ourselves to do that. And then
yeah,
ultimately to become authentic thought leaders. And that could be books, it could be conferences, it could be whatever. Then to
right.
ultimately then coach and mentor, and then it's life beyond the vine. And so,
Yeah,
a lot of people have a hard time letting go of the vine if they don't know what life beyond the vine is. And you've done those things so amazingly And what's cool is you're taking a complex thing like financial literacy and understanding what are numbers and simplifying it down, teaching it, but
Yeah.
then also teaching them to teach themselves, which I
Right.
love. And so we did that at EOS. We taught the leadership team, and then it was really up to them, but it was also us selling our time for money, which is amazing. It was great money and great value. But what you're
Sure.
doing, and I'm doing the same thing, and that's what I find with a lot of visionaries is we're doing it, but then it's all of our time. But as we start to say, this is cool, and what do we usually do is we ask great questions, we listen.
Right.
Sometimes that
Right.
takes learning and patience, and then take their words and their thoughts and then jumble it and push it back with a little bit of organization. And it's like, well, that's kind of it, kind of not. And then let them go. And again, if they want the coaching, that's great. But that's where I knew AI. I mean, 15 years ago, I'm like, what Gino does is amazing, but he pretty much listens, puts shit on the board, gives it back, and then he's amazing. I do the same thing with life coaching. You're doing the same thing with business coaching, with financial and everything. But it's interesting. We're helping to simplify, and I'm hoping, and I actually believe AI can be our friend in this. I'm excited to embrace it.
Well, no, I agree with you, Bob. And I think as coaches, because most people who don't live in our world too often think we're consultants or, it's all one word, they're all synonyms.
Right.
And when we really parse out teacher, coach, facilitator as there's three really distinctive, and you double click on each of those, you get a different job, a different role. And,
Right.
and a consultant, I sort of distinguish those three as sort of a unit as a coach that is like a mirror, like you said. All we're doing is reflecting. So what you're saying is, it sounds like
Yeah.
what you mean. So let me repeat that back to you and see if
Without
that
judgment. Right.
judgment-free kind of mirror, and then a consultant is more like, I'm going to tell you what you need to do.
Right.
So I put ourselves in that coach world, which I think is very valuable because we're helping them find the answer versus telling them. And when they find the answer, they're much more convicted about their energy and urgency forward, which is, I think, just fascinating
Right.
because they own it. Like
Oh
they
yeah.
graduate.
When someone tells me the lesson, I'm like, screw you, Alex.
Yeah.
That's
That's your opinion, right? I'm out.
right. And what a mutual mentor of ours, Dan Sullivan, I have so many things that I've learned from him. And one of the things, this was like the third week when Gino and I were together going through Coach 22 years ago or whatever it was. And I heard Dan say this, and again, this may or may not be exactly what he said, but I heard the next great war or battle was between entrepreneurs or entrepreneurship and bureaucracy. And I'm like, wow,
Mhm.
that's interesting. And I've been ready and fighting that battle, and I'm realizing, wait a minute, it's not a war. It's coming together because we need both. We need some bureaucracy and we need some entrepreneurship. We need some structure and process, and we need some of the magic and the love and the connection. And so it's easy. And I feel like that's the world we're in literally today. And we've talked a little
Yeah.
bit about this, that different times in the universe, this time right now is about collaboration and not over control and letting go. I'm sorry, any comments on that?
No, I love that. One of my coaches is Brian Johnson, and he's got a book out called Heroic, and really, really fascinating guy. But he uses the metaphor of a river. We're flowing down the river, and you just don't want to go over the banks, right? You
Right.
want to stay. There's freedom in there, like everything about bureaucracy and entrepreneurship. You just don't want to go too extreme on either one, or maybe pendulum's another metaphor. But
Right.
where are your boundaries? Where are your bright lines to keep in? And I'm a big fan of Ayn Rand, and Atlas Shrugged did it way back when. And, that's like anti-government, like we're going on
Right.
strike.
Right.
And
Fucking looters.
entrepreneurs,
And that's
yeah.
not a very loving energy, but that's where I was a while ago. But anyways.
No, but it's great. But her metaphor I love is that like Atlas, entrepreneurs carry the weight of the world with creativity and new businesses and new products and new services and jobs and opportunities for all these people. And if they were to just shrug in her little science fiction,
Right.
it would be terrible for the world. So it does take both, right? There's
Right.
some foundational infrastructure pieces that we need, and certainly military around. But other than that, I think you get the free market, and you could do that in healthcare. If
Right.
we got to
And
entrepreneurs
that's
can do.
where, not only it's not up to us visionaries to go change the world. To me, it's up to us visionaries to walk the talk and be the example and having courage and inspiration to slow down and just think and observe, how can I help? Because most of us are solving a problem. oh, I hear
Right.
this is your issue, Alex, and would this help?
Yeah.
It does. Okay, would you pay me for it? Okay, cool. Now, shit, I have to go figure out how to then solve their solution. But it's about
Right.
teaching, right? It's not just about teaching other visionaries. To me, it's teaching my kids, my employees, that what is it like to even have vision? Because people are like, oh, that's
Yeah.
for you. That's crazy, Bob. Always, chasing squirrels. Fuck off.
Right.
We need both. And so even for my kids to say, Nick, what do you want to do after high school? Is like, well, I'm not really sure. Okay, whatever. I was like, well, if you did know, oh, well, I would play D1 baseball where I play, go somewhere warm and fun. I'm like, okay, that's cool. Let's jump in. And that was his vision. And then all of a
Yeah.
sudden, Princeton came calling, and he's like, well, that's kind of cool. It's not warm or fun, but it's playing D1 baseball. And then he realized what matters most is to learn and to be, start to figure out who he is and have these great connections and push himself. And that was
Yeah.
not,
Yeah.
he studied for about 5 minutes in high school, and now he's studying, I talked to him last night, he's studying like 4 hours a day right now for finals. And he's like, this is crazy. And then he's like, it's kind of cool, because he's learning. So
Yeah.
anyway, my point is, what is your vision? And that's part of our role to help everyone to realize, what's your vision for your life? What's your vision for your vacation?
Yeah. Have you ever read, there's a guy named Elliot Jacks, and I think he passed away a while, but he wrote 50, 60, 70, he wrote about time span capacity, like how far out people can see. Like if you think
Right,
about the people when they came over to America, they have this like, decades or hundreds years vision, the declaration on, and but as you bring it into business, the ability for a frontline person to really see further out than like a month is not there. And can we help them climb the tree a little higher and see
right,
this is 10 years and this is 3 years, like,
right,
and they could be excited about it and say, well, that's a good point. And so I want my kids to go to college, and I want this, and I want to go to Disney World with the family.
right,
Those are great little pieces of your vision. Let's make it happen.
right.
And so it's really cool to help bring their dreams kind of down to the ground and make them,
Right. Well, it's
you know,
interesting. My wife and I are in a new stage, which a lot of us are, where our kids are now grown up. I Matter,
yeah,
the life operating system business, has now been birthed, and it doesn't need to be parented anymore. And we're kind of like, what do we do now? Unfortunately, we want to be together, which is a very cool thing. But it's a
yeah,
new time where we have some time, and it's just we're looking at things differently, and it's just such a cool opportunity to be it ourselves, and to, even as we were talking about, all of a sudden we're like, what can we do this year? And she's like, we could do this, and I'm like, oh, we could do this, and we got all excited, and then we're like, we can't do all that. And this was just this weekend, we did a birthday retreat to the mountain in downtown Detroit. But we did vision, and then we kind of got disappointed and depressed to say, well, we can't do all that. Then I'm like, wait a minute, what if we did that year 2 or year 3? It's like, oh, okay, cool. Well,
right,
what can we do and be this year? And so even
yeah,
usually we go to Colorado at the beginning of December, and with a lot going on, a lot of cool stuff, we're like,
right,
well, it doesn't make sense. Let's just go downtown. But yeah, so what you're saying, I love. It's like somewhere way out there, 10,
yeah,
20 years ago, okay, 3 years, this is what it could look like. And again, I know
right,
that's over processed sometimes, but yeah, the 3 year, bring it down to the ground one, and then EOS will get into the quarterly, the to-dos are weekly, and then, as you know, one of our things is the 331
yeah,
is daily. So that's where I'm like,
right.
what would make today awesome? And then knowing what the big picture is, it's been a cool thing, but very cool.
Oh, yeah.
So what do you think, because you deal with hundreds of visionaries, if not more, what do you think is the number one thing that visionaries are dealing with right now? And again, it could be personal or professional.
Yeah, the number of things are coming to mind, but there's some torture, some self-torture in there. If you're familiar with positive intelligence, the saboteur of hyperachiever,
Yeah.
and which in my top three. And I would guess our audience is similar. Like it's just like
Yes.
we're never there, and
Right.
so that is certainly something sort of personally or individually that entrepreneurs suffer from. Perhaps, and some aren't aware of it. What's my drive? Why am I so restless about
Right.
like my happiness right now? And
Right.
that is a big one. I do see the distinction between like leadership team and then all my folks, all my teammates, and there's
Right.
sort of this divide there that when we think shared by all, often we're talking about one company, right? And so in order to get the vision shared by like 150 people, it's a lot of work to do that.
Right.
And it takes intention, and it takes, to your point, like a vision for it. In 3
Right.
years, we have Best Places to Work awards because we're getting 97, NPS or whatever internally. I think there's an ENPS, maybe an Employee Net Promoter
Oh,
Score.
right. Yeah, I'm not sure. I know. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yep.
How do you get that? Well, let's back it into like, what do we need to do this year to begin to start to engage people? And so a lot of what we do with EOS as coaches and implementers is to try to teach them to cascade the LMA, cascade the vision and so forth. And I think the business literacy around that, I'm a big fan of that, is trying to be a little bit more transparent with, to the degree you're comfortable with numbers. And so they kind of know what's the score and are we winning or losing? And they start to get interested in the game of business, and then understand what levers do I pull in my department that affect the company's VTO. And that connection is often a weak link. So as visionaries, can we provide tools and training and resources so that the employees can begin to and you increase retention of great people. People are more motivated. People are making more money. And I think they're kind of in that flow state you and I talk about. We don't even like, well, can you say that again, Bob? And you're like, I don't even know what I said. They like, you're just
no, but I think it was kind of cool, right?
Yeah. So how do we get everybody in the company in the zone, just to be in their what they love to do, their personal core focus, right? Their unique ability, Dan Sullivan.
Right.
So.
Right. Well, I hear all that, and I think you were saying a lot of this, right? But it's like for me to be myself, because when I'm over processed or I'm not trusting enough to share in my vision, then it's like then I start to lose a little bit of interest. And a lot of visionaries, I think, do that. Then they're like, oh, there's too much structure. It's like, okay, but am I not imposing my will, but am I sharing passionately my why, what, and how? And does that resonate? And are we passionately sharing our why, what, and how in the business? And I realized a long time ago that my job was not to sell, it was to share a compelling story about our company, our people, and our process. And what my role was, people like, okay, that sounds good. I'm like, okay, I want nothing to do with you saying yes to me. I'm going to turn you over to someone who's better at it than I am. And then I'm like, go have a drink. Right. And it's like, but it's so cool. But yeah, so I appreciate what you were saying. And I think a lot of it, to sum it up, is be yourself, but don't be obnoxious about it.
No, you're absolutely right. Michael Alasso is another coach that I've used in the past, and he has a phrase: structure frees creativity.
Oh, nice.
And I love that, because to your point, you can't have chaos. And I remember I had to write a paper in like 7th grade to defend this statement. I don't even know what the statement meant, but it was individual liberties must be curtailed for the survival of society. And as I was think through individual liberties, what does that mean? Must be curtailed. What is that for the? And I was like, yeah, actually, you can't have complete like run in the streets craziness. You have to have some boundaries there, but within the structure. And if you look at the quarterly agenda, we don't put times on check-in and review the quarter. It's a structure, and it's going to help us have sanity to our plan today, or our plan here, or our plan. So it has to be a little bit of like, we can't just go, everybody do what you need to do. It's got to have some intention around it. Like an accountability chart has structure, and it has a 80-20 kind of. This is essential. And so I love that about our freedom to allow for the creativity within sort of a process that has proven over and over again.
Right. When I love it's objective driven, not agenda driven. And I haven't even recently, I find that I get nervous if we don't hit every agenda item. And so I've gotten better at saying, okay, again, remember, we're going to accomplish these things. We may not accomplish all, because even the other day, someone's like, I don't think he's going to get to the SWOT. And I'm like, we just solved, a major issue with one of the partners, for 4 hours. That you're ready to break up the company. You're worried that I didn't check off that box, but it is nice to have the agenda, and again, to set the expectations.
Awesome. It helps us kind of keep, I guess, an element of control or some confidence that we've got a plan in the room that day.
Right. Awesome. So I want to share one thing personally, just because we've got a great history and it just happened. I'm evolving myself. and left the EOS community officially on February 29th of 2024, which is kind of a cool day to do it. And it was scary because I love the community. It's really good money. And so I had already for a year and a half been phasing down my practice. And I realized as we were allowed to keep our current clients, as, either 2-day annuals or whatever, and or finish up our existing clients. Well, I graduated my client on Wednesday. And this is a frustrating thing about being an implementer is it's going really well. This is fun. I want to stay with you guys, So I'm sure that still do the 2-day annual, but as I officially said, you don't need me anymore. Way to go, fly and be free. They're my last EOS client. So when you yourself, so I still have several 2-day annuals and I coach some of them individually, but as an EOS implementer, it's interesting that I'm like, oh, I left on February 29th, but now literally this week I let go of that buying, which is scary because it's pretty predictable. You add a lot of value, you get paid a lot of money. And yet I really wanted to focus on this stage of my life to have more freedom and affect more people. And Sullivan's 10X is easier than 2X. So just when you said, bet on yourself, this morning I did a couple blogs, and I may or may not post them, but it was like, I jumped, and it burned the boat, or how did you phrase it? I'm not going after two things and getting neither.
Right.
So I just wanted to share that it's just, again, I think it's constantly evolving. It's going from one stage to a next. But any comments on that? I mean, I just wanted to share it, but any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I don't know. It's a great point and it makes me think about the freedom that we have as entrepreneurs and implementers to dial up or dial down. I've talked to some implementers who do like 140 session days a year, and I'm like, I've never done that. I've never done that. 110, maybe 107. I can't remember.
My top is I think 78, and that was a lot. But go ahead.
Yeah. And next year, my Becky, my assistant, and I were talking. 82 is my number. 82, and so it provides some confidence, like cash confidence, but it also has some structure to my calendar for the year, and then it opens up these windows of creativity, freedom, or time, or travel, or whatever I want. So the freedom of time, I think, is a powerful piece to that. But to your point, the evolution of, say, ProfitWorks to maybe a software that has coaching to it, to have EOS implementers who want to add, how do I teach ProfitWorks to my clients? Well, let me teach you how to teach that, right? And so there's like, a coaching program. So we're all evolving, and we're all moving and changing, and it's that impermanence that is just a constant, which is kind of ironic. So
I think we call that life. Absolutely. Very cool. So one last question, and if you have anything else to add, absolutely. But when you hear Viva La Visionary, what does that mean to you, or what does that mean in general? And we've talked about this, so I'm interested.
Talked about this.
I think it's stupid.
No, I love it because there's this, it's like, I don't know what the exact translation. I think long live the visionary, right?
That's my interpretation. Yes. Yeah.
So the entrepreneur is celebrated. The entrepreneur is a hero, and that's one of my missions, is to be a hero to entrepreneurs. So I'm just a big fan of that. It's fun, and it's got that sort of bilingual sort of element to it, which makes it kind of like, it makes you smile, and gives it a haphazard but celebratory feel to it. So I think it's great. I think this for your audience is perfect. It's free flowing, and you're going to have lots of interesting characters on here, and lots of different philosophies. And so most of us are learners, and like my strengths finder, my number one's input. I just love taking stuff in and then seeing patterns in it, and perhaps coming up with ideas. So I love Viva La Vision. Yeah.
Well, thank you. Yeah, and it's been kind of a rally cry for us. And it's not that we are trying to act like the victim to say we're being shoved aside, but literally most of us, as we are learning how to be vulnerable with others and ourselves, and that's the growth, is to realize, you know what, ever since I was a kid, I was made fun of. Bob can't sit still. And he's no attention to details. Oh, and you forgot. And it's like, so literally with the imposter syndrome philosophy and reality, is as I started to get into the conversation of what was going on in my head, I thought I was an idiot up here. because I'm
Yeah.
not good with numbers and I wish I could remember that the way Alex does, or I tried something, it didn't work. And so that conversation in my head, and many
Yeah.
people said, but especially visionaries, and that's the whole unscatter the chatter, is to shift that conversation. So that rally
Yeah.
cry, and at the conference, I mean, there were hundreds of people walking around with the tag that we gave out, Viva La Visionary. And it was like, yeah,
That's
we're no better than anyone else. We're different and unique. I mentioned early on in our conversation that the integrator role sucks, and I never would want to do it. And it's, I'm sure, very lonely. They need to be
right.
celebrated. Let's
And
all figure out who we are, not only in the business, but in life. And let's help each other to learn and grow and have a great time.
I agree with you. And that's where that yin yang of a visionary integrator, both wearing capes. It's just one's kind of backstage, like just doing the hard work, and one's kind of out there in the front stage. And I will share with you, Bob, that when I graduated from college, I moved to Chicago. I didn't have a job for about a year and found a job as 91 in Connecticut, and then got laid off after about 10 months. And I was like, I'm freaking smart. Like, I know I can do, like, what is wrong with me?
Right.
And I packed up my car and I drove to Los Angeles because maybe the day before I'd talked to a buddy who was out there, and he's like, come out here, Al. You can do some acting. And I'm in the, he was editing commercials and stuff. And so I drove out there for about a year and pursued an acting career and did improv comedy, which I enjoyed. But then I was out there and like, what is wrong with me? Like, my chatter was like not helping me. And eventually I got my, the wind behind me and so forth, and made some decisions. But those are tough periods of time for us, because there's a bit of potential depression. There's like this sort of imposter or self-defeat, and lack of this confidence and so we all go through these periods of up and down, which hopefully resonates with your audience as well. So it's not all wonderful and perfect for any of us.
Right. And what do you think we learn more from as humans, our successes or our failures? I mean,
yeah, well, the latter, absolutely.
Right.
But
Bill Gates, not that I look forward to them, but I think I create them sometimes.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
okay, I've learned.
I know. And I remember having to do a bar graph of my life, and what are the high points and the low points, and I couldn't come up with any low points because I'm an eternal optimist. I'm like, well, yeah, I couldn't find a job, but what a great time in LA I had, or what? Oh my, well, that led to this, and I wouldn't have met so and so, and that so it's just part of our DNA, I think. Find
we're good at rationalizing, connecting the dots. I love that. Cool. All right. Any final thoughts for visionaries? This has been amazing.
No, I appreciate you inviting me on, and hopefully what I've shared is inspiring for folks. And I look forward to seeing everybody in Florida in March. So that's going to be great. That I have by the way, Bob, you sent me, I don't know if you sent these to me or my assistant sent these, but I've got these in my session room for my visionaries. So to get more folks inspired, but Fort Lauderdale in March is next. So I'm looking forward to that. And I really appreciate what you're doing for this economy. So thank you.
Awesome. Oh, my pleasure. And I look forward to seeing you at the summit. And how do people look up your stuff? How do they go to your website or get your books?
Yeah, I have alexfreytag.com, which leads to EOS or ProfitWorks, and ProfitWorksLLC.com is that website, which has the pathway to that new automation software called Autopilot. That's probably and I'm on LinkedIn, of course. And so always love talking about this stuff, and happy to help any way I can. So thank you.
Good. Well, thank you for your time and your friendship, and also helping visionaries and many people. So, all right, have a great day. Appreciate you, Alex. All right, bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for tuning in to Viva La Visionary. We hope you enjoyed today's episode and found inspiration in our guest stories. If you loved what you heard, please subscribe, rate, and share the podcast with fellow dreamers and doers. Join us next time as we continue to explore the limitless possibilities of visionary thinking. Until then, keep dreaming big and taking action. Your vision matters.